Did you know that these 5 horror movies were inspired by true events? By now, we all know that when you see that based on a true story label on a horror movie that you should take it with a grain of salt. Usually, it's very little that's actually used for the film. There are, however, some movies that do take inspiration from real-life events that we don't even really hear about, and that's what I want to talk about today. Join me for this episode of Ranking Rumble. Welcome back to WWH. My name is Andrew Dreamer. Before I get going here, I just want to take a moment to remember Todd, who passed away a couple days ago. He's an absolute legend and an icon in the horror community. From Candyman to Final Destination to Hatchet, he was immensely talented. He loved what he did. He loved the characters that he played. You could always see the effort in every performance that he gave, no matter what, and I love that about him. He will be dearly missed. Alright, let's get going now. Horror movies based on true events. Which ones do you think of? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Conjuring, maybe The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Look, my point is that there are a plethora of horror movies that claim to be based on true events. The degree in which that is true varies from a great deal to flat out lie. I didn't want to talk about the movies that straight up tell you they're based on a true story, and I didn't want to talk about the ones that we all know about. I mean, it's widely known that Ed Gein inspired TCM, Psycho, and Silence of the Lambs. So what I wanted to do is talk about the movies that were based on real events that maybe not everybody knows. Now, if you already know these, that is okay, but I think it's interesting to talk about regardless because we can take this information and pass it along to our friends who aren't horror superfans like all of us. That being said, it is bell time. So grab your popcorn and make your way to your seat. Let's head down to the ring. Starting us off at number 5 is A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's right, our favorite dream demon is on this list. This one is a bit of a stretch maybe, but it's still interesting for sure. Obviously, we all know that Freddy Krueger attacks you in your dreams. He invades you when you're the most vulnerable, when you're asleep. But where did Wes Craven get this idea? The true inspiration behind the film came from a series of disturbing events that Wes Craven encountered during his research. He learned about a group of Cambodian refugees who had fled to the United States, some of whom experienced intense nightmares that led them to refuse to go to sleep. There were even reports of some of them dying in their sleep, which is absolutely terrifying. Now, I'm not smart enough to really dive into why this happened or what those refugees had experienced that may have triggered some of these nightmares, so I'll just say that it is terribly tragic. But this led Craven to contemplate the fear of losing control over one's own mind and body, particularly in that vulnerable state of sleep. Craven also drew from his own childhood experiences, particularly the fear of the supernatural forces and the psychological trauma of facing one's fears. He wanted to explore themes of guilt, vengeance, and the blurred lines of reality and dreams. All of these events led to the creation of a character in a movie that infiltrated every facet of pop culture. And that continues on to this day. The character of Freddy Krueger, with his backstory as a child murderer seeking revenge from beyond the grave, became a symbol of the darker aspects of the human psyche, highlighting how past traumas can haunt individuals long after they have occurred. Real fear can lead to some of the absolute best movies. By the way, don't forget to body slam that subscribe button so you never miss any of the heart-pounding, chill-inducing 5-star matches we have here at WWH. We're not just wrestling with horror. We're delivering it to your screen every week. Next up at number 4, we have The Birds. While it's true that this Alfred Hitchcock film was adapted from the Daphne du Maurier's 1952 story of the same name, there was also real-life inspiration behind the picture as well. So, the film is about a bunch of birds that have started attacking and killing people in Bodega Bay, California. Now, the actual story isn't quite that deadly, but I imagine it was still pretty scary. You see, on August 18th, 1961, hundreds of sooty shearwaters attacked Capitola, California, dive-bombing people, cars, and even some buildings. The birds regurgitated half-digested fish and seemed to be lost in a dense fog, kind of like they were confused. The birds were suffering from a neurotoxin called domoic acid, which was produced by a type of algae that grows in the ocean. Now, the algae was actually a part of the bird's diet, and the warm water conditions at the time promoted its growth. So the birds were disoriented and didn't really know what they were doing. Hitchcock happened to live near that area and then called the local newspaper to learn more about the event. He used the event as research material for the birds, and I personally think that it worked out really well. I won't say that this is my favorite Hitchcock movie, but it's really effective, and I think the horror really comes across on the screen. Although, some of the ways that Hitchcock achieved this are, well, they're not great. That's for sure. Coming in at number 3 is Scream. That's right, we have another Wes Craven film on this list, although he didn't write this one. That was done by Kevin Williamson, which we all know by now. Scream revolutionized the horror genre by blending slasher elements with self-aware humor. The film focuses on a killer known as Ghostface who terrorizes a group of high school students in Woodsboro. What set Scream apart at the time is its meta-commentary on horror movie cliches, as characters in the film discuss the rules of surviving a horror film, making it both a homage and a critique of the genre. Again, this is all stuff that we know, but I wanted to provide a little background. The true inspiration behind Scream largely comes from the real-life events of the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Rawling. He murdered 5 college students in Gainesville, Florida over a 4-day period in August of 1990. In total, he confessed to killing 8 people and even doing some other disgusting things that I can't talk about here. Look, dude was a horrible person who did heinous things, and let's just leave it at that. But this left a profound impact on Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson. They wanted to create a film that not only delivered thrills, but also explored the psychology of fear and the impact of media on violence. By combining real-life horror with fictional elements, Scream struck a chord with audiences, leading to its status as a classic and spawning multiple sequels. That's the thing about really good writers and filmmakers. They draw from real events and real experiences to create something that resonates with audiences. Anybody can put words to paper, but it takes a certain vulnerability to use your own fear on the page. The film's unique approach not only reinvigorated the slasher genre, but also paved the way for a new era of horror that embraced self-referential and satire. Our number 2 entrant is The Possession. We've talked about this movie on the channel before, and I actually enjoyed this movie quite a bit. The film follows a young girl named Emily who becomes possessed by a malevolent spirit after acquiring an antique wooden box at a yard sale. And as her behavior becomes increasingly erratic and disturbing, her father, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, must confront the dark forces at play to save his daughter. The movie was inspired by a 2004 LA Times article titled A Jinx in a Box. Leslie Gornstein, who wrote the article, was inspired to do so after a friend sent her the link to an eBay listing for a supposedly haunted Jewish wine cabinet box. The urban legends surrounding the box originated with Kevin Manis, an antiques collector from Oregon. He claimed that the cursed item, which contained intriguing objects such as a pair of U.S. wheat pennies, 2 locks of hair tied together with string, and a granite stone inscribed with the Hebrew word shalom, was purchased in Spain by an older woman many years ago. Manis acquired the box from the woman's granddaughter, but decided to sell it after experiencing a series of misfortunes. As Gornstein soon discovered, anyone who came into possession of the box began to encounter bizarre occurrences, ranging from sudden hair loss and mysterious scents in their home to unexpected strokes and even FBI investigations. The filmmakers sought to blend these chilling real-life events with classic horror tropes, creating a story that not only is scary, but also touches on themes of family and the struggle against dark forces. I know this movie isn't widely regarded as being great, but it has always stuck with me, and after learning this, I can kind of see why. For our number 1 entrant, we have The Stepfather. I know this probably seems like an odd one to include, but the story is really interesting. The film follows a seemingly perfect stepfather who is looking to create the ideal family. However, behind his charming facade lies a disturbed individual who has a history of murdering his previous families when they fail to meet his unrealistic expectations. As he tries to maintain his new life with a widow and her children, The film explores themes of identity, trust, and the facade of the American family. The film's climax reveals the extent of his madness, blending elements of horror with a psychological thriller. Now, let's get to what really inspired this classic slasher film. The film was inspired by a man named John List. In 1971, List murdered his wife, mother, and 2 children in their New Jersey home before disappearing for nearly 18 years. After the murders, List meticulously created a new identity, living under a different name and adopting the persona of a devoted family man. His chilling ability to blend into society while concealing his heinous past served as a haunting backdrop for the film's narrative. Here's the thing, though. List hadn't even been caught when this movie was released. He was caught 2 years after the film's release. Movie came out in 1987. List was caught in 1989. That is insane to me. I mean, did he watch the movie and know that they used his story to make it? I don't know, but I think the story is really interesting, and that is why The Stepfather is our #1 entrant. But there you have it. Those are 5 horror movies inspired by real-life events. Did you know any of these stories, or do you have any other movies inspired by real-life events like these? Let me know down in the comments, and let's have a discussion about it. If you're interested in Redcon 1 products, I have a discount code that you can use to save 20% off of your entire order. Be sure to check that out. And you can also find all of my merchandise available at prowrestlingtees.com/Andrew Dreamer or right under this video here on YouTube. And don't forget to check out our WWH Patreon page, where I have been reworking and adding some new perks over there. So go check that out and consider joining us there. Or you can become a member right here on YouTube as well. All of the links are in the description. Don't forget to like this video and share the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of the action here at WWH. Now that we've talked about true stories behind some horror movies, what are the saddest horror movies of all time? Luckily, you can find out by watching the video that's appearing on your screen now. And remember, in the squared circle of horror, there are no countouts for nightmares. My name is Andrew Dreamer, and this is Wrestling with Horror.